Hey everyone, Amos Miller here. Picture this. You have poured your hard-earned cash, your sweat, and your weekend dreams into building the perfect wooden raised bed, only to watch it crumble into a graveyard of dead leaves. It is a gut-wrenching feeling that too many backyard dreamers know all too well. You spent hundreds of dollars of your hard-earned money at the local home improvement store. You bought the premium cedar planks, the rich organic soil, and those high-hope heirloom seeds. You envisioned a lush, vibrant paradise feeding your family. But instead, weeks later, you are staring at yellowing stems, stunted roots, and dusty, lifeless dirt. You feel cheated. You feel deeply embarrassed, watching your neighbors look over the fence at your expensive backyard hobby gone horribly wrong. I have been there, standing in the quiet dirt, letting out a heavy, painful sigh over a withered garden bed, wondering exactly where the dream died. But if you think this tragic failure is just bad luck or a lack of a green thumb, you are dead wrong. The truth is, you have unknowingly walked straight into a series of silent, fatal traps that ruin most beginner gardens before the seeds even have a chance to sprout. Today, we are pulling back the dark curtain on the 9 devastating mistakes that turn your beautiful wooden garden beds into expensive wooden coffins. Subscribe to the Amos Miller channel right now because we are about to dismantle these amateur myths one by one and rescue your backyard investment. So ask yourself this critical question. Why did your grueling labor, your high hopes, and your hard-earned money end up becoming a luxurious, free buffet for pests and rot instead of a beautiful, thriving feast for your own family? The truth is, you've been sold a glossy, fabricated lie. You've seen those curated, picture-perfect garden beds all over social media, those aesthetic, cedar-planked boxes that promise a harvest of dreams. But I, Amos Miller, am here to tell you that these modern backyard projects are nothing more than beautifully crafted failures. They are trendy, they are expensive, and they are built on a foundation of pure ignorance. The industry wants you to believe that simply buying a prefabricated kit makes you a gardener. They hide the core principles of agriculture behind overpriced lumber and fancy soil bags. They ignore the ancient, proven rhythms of the earth, selling you convenience instead of competence. While you were busy chasing hashtags and chasing the next viral DIY trend, you were systematically dismantling the natural integrity of your soil. This isn't just a waste of money, it is a fundamental betrayal of how nature actually functions. When you abandon the wisdom of traditional farming for the sake of an aesthetic, you don't just lose a season of vegetables, you lose your connection to the land itself. We have become so distracted by the facade of modern living that we have forgotten how to listen to the ground beneath our feet. I've seen thousands of gardens that look like professional magazine spreads, only to find them completely sterile underneath the surface. The soul of your garden is dying because you've traded heritage for hype, and it's time to stop the bleeding. But what if the very thing you think you're doing right is the exact reason your plants are struggling to survive? If you believe this is simply about bad luck or poor seeds, then you are missing the shadow creeping over your yard. Are you, at this very moment, unknowingly murdering your precious crops by placing your wooden beds in a location destined for absolute failure? You've traded heritage for hype, and it's time to stop the bleeding. But what if the very thing you think you're doing right is the exact reason your plants are struggling to survive? If you believe this is simply about bad luck or poor seeds, then you are missing the shadow creeping over your yard. Are you, at this very moment, unknowingly murdering your precious crops by placing your wooden beds in a location destined for absolute failure? I'm Amos Miller, and I have spent decades watching the earth speak in a language most modern gardeners have forgotten. While the world rushed toward convenient plastic kits and hollow advice, I stayed grounded in the dirt, learning the rhythm of the seasons and the stubborn resilience of the soil. It wasn't about following a trend, it was about survival. I've seen the seasons break empires, and I've seen them build legacies from nothing but organic matter and patience. My garden isn't just a patch of land. It is a testimony to a way of life that refuses to bow to the industry's false promises. You see, the secrets of a flourishing garden aren't buried in expensive fertilizers or store-bought gimmicks. They are etched into the very chemistry of the earth beneath your boots. When you align your labor with these natural principles, you move from being a mere bystander to a master of your own harvest. But if you think that putting together a wooden box is all it takes, you are setting yourself up for a season of heartbreak. The foundation of your success is laid long before the first seed touches the soil. And if you think you've mastered the basics, prepare to be humbled. I am about to reveal the first fatal mistake that even the most seasoned gardeners make right at the design phase. You've built your wooden frame, convinced that placement is just a matter of convenience. But listen closely. I'm Amos Miller, and I'm telling you, you are walking into a trap. We often prioritize the aesthetic of our yard, placing beds near the back door for a quick harvest. It's convenient, sure, but is it lethal? Placing a garden bed without calculating the sun's arc is a death sentence for your crops. The sun doesn't care about your design sketches. If you shadow your bed with a fence or a neighbor's tree, you've essentially built a wooden coffin for your plants. A garden requires a minimum of 6 to 8 hours of direct, unfiltered light. Anything less, and your greens won't grow. They'll struggle, stretch, and eventually wither away in silence. It's a tragic waste of time, money, and soil nutrients. You must track the shadows as they dance across your plot throughout the entire day. Observe, measure, and plan with precision. But here is where most people fail. They confuse convenience with efficiency. Building a bed that looks pretty but lacks a strategic orientation is a rookie gamble that always results in a failed season. This isn't just about gardening, it's about understanding the environment you are trying to master. My philosophy at Amos Miller is built on aligning with nature, not dictating terms to it. If you fight the sun, you lose every single time. It's a harsh lesson, but one you must learn before you dig deeper into this project. If you think that water irrigation is merely a minor detail in this equation, you are dead wrong. Wait until you see your water bill skyrocket and your hard labor wash away into nothingness. You're staring at a parched garden, desperate, thinking a garden hose is your best friend. It isn't. It's an enemy of efficiency. I'm Amos Miller, and I'm here to tell you that wasting water is the ultimate amateur mistake. You are bleeding resources, watching your hard-earned effort evaporate under the scorching heat, all because you refuse to plan for a proper irrigation system from the very first day. The secret? Forget the manual labor. You need an automated drip irrigation setup. It's about delivering precision hydration exactly where the roots need it, not spraying the weeds in the pathways. When you install these lines, you aren't just saving money, you're buying back your time. It transforms your garden from a high-maintenance chore into a self-sustaining machine. This is how I've scaled my operation, by working with nature, not constantly battling it with a handheld sprayer. But if you think that installing a few tubes is where the mastery ends, you have severely underestimated the complexity of this craft. Most people focus on the water delivery, yet they completely ignore the silent engine of the entire system, the soil. You are rushing to feed the plants, but you are neglecting the very foundation that keeps them alive. If your irrigation is top tier, but your medium is depleted, you're just pouring resources into a graveyard. Think about it carefully before you make your next move. Are you actually nourishing a living plant, or are you just dumping water into a shallow tomb? The difference between vibrant, nutrient-dense topsoil and completely dead, barren dirt is the difference between a bountiful harvest and absolute failure. Subscribe to the Amos Miller channel if you're ready to stop guessing and start growing real life. Are you nurturing the plant, or are you just nourishing the soil? That, my friend, is the question that decides your fate. You are wondering if you are nurturing a plant or just nourishing the soil. That is the question that decides your fate. I am Amos Miller, and I am here to tell you that most beginners are killing their garden before the first sprout even breaks the surface. They treat the earth like a static vessel, but in reality, your wooden bed is a bustling, microscopic city. If that soil is compacted, you have essentially built a concrete prison for your roots. I, Amos Miller, have seen the difference. You need air. You need porosity. When you use quality, fluffy soil, you are giving those roots the freedom to hunt for minerals and thrive. It is not just about dirt, it is about creating a thriving underground ecosystem. Now stop for a second and think about the sun's relentless heat beating down on your beds. Without a protective shield, your soil is losing moisture by the second. This is where the magic of mulching comes into play. Think of mulch as a warm, protective blanket that stabilizes the temperature and feeds the soil organisms that do the heavy lifting for you. But if you think that putting down a layer of organic mulch is enough to save a poorly planned plot, then you have clearly lost the plot entirely. This is where the amateur mistakes start to compound into a disaster that no amount of fertilizer can fix. You see, the most common error is hiding right under your nose. If you keep overcrowding your beds, believing that more plants equal more food, you are delusional. If your garden is too tight, those plants will never stand a chance to reach their true potential. To save a poorly planned plot, then you have clearly lost the plot entirely. This is where the amateur mistakes start to compound into a disaster that no amount of fertilizer can fix. You see, the most common error is hiding right under your nose. If you keep overcrowding your beds, believing that more plants equal more food, you are delusional. If your garden is too tight, those plants will never stand a chance to reach their true potential. I am Amos Miller, and I have learned that gardening is a strategic game of chess. Most beginners ignore the golden ratio of spacing, treating their raised beds like a crowded subway at rush hour. You need pathways. Without them, you cannot maintain your crop without trampling your own hard work. Give your plants the room to breathe or watch them suffocate under the shadow of their neighbors. It is about height management too. Place your towering corn or trellised vines on the north side, letting them chase the sky without casting a death shroud over your delicate greens. It is a delicate dance of geometry and biology. When you balance the height, every leaf catches the sun and every root finds its sanctuary. If you think that is just basic advice, you are dead wrong. It is the foundation of a high-yield legacy. I have built my reputation on these ruthless standards, and you should too if you want results. If you believe that your garden is merely a seasonal hobby rather than a life-sustaining ecosystem, then you are missing the heartbeat of the earth. But this is where the real nightmare begins to surface. Are you leaving your garden beds barren between the seasons, unknowingly letting all the life you painstakingly cultivated simply vanish into thin air? You think you're done once the harvest hits the crate? That's amateur hour, and frankly, it's a death sentence for your soil's future potential. I'm Amos Miller, and I've built my reputation on these ruthless standards, and you should too if you want results. If you believe that your garden is merely a seasonal hobby rather than a life-sustaining ecosystem, then you are missing the heartbeat of the earth. But this is where the real nightmare begins to surface. Are you leaving your garden beds barren between the seasons, unknowingly letting all the life you painstakingly cultivated simply vanish into thin air? Soil isn't just dirt. It's a living bank account. If you don't replenish it after harvest with organic matter and cover crops, you are bankrupting your land. Most beginners treat the soil like a disposable commodity. They exhaust it, deplete the nutrients, and wonder why their yields plummet by year 2. That is the quickest way to kill your garden dreams. But if you really want to graduate from weekend dabbler to a master grower, you need to start keeping a garden journal. Write down everything. Every planting date, every amendment, every temperature fluctuation, and every single failure. If it isn't documented, it's just a guess. You need cold, hard data to track your progress and optimize your rhythm. If you think you can thrive without keeping these records, then you are truly blinded by your own arrogance. Look, the difference between a failing patch and a flourishing empire lies in these forgotten details. You cannot improve what you refuse to measure. But this is only the tip of the iceberg, because I'm about to show you how one tiny shift in your gardening mindset can save you thousands of dollars every single year. Now let's talk about the red lines you must never cross. I am Amos Miller, and I have seen too many beginners flush their dreams down the drain by ignoring the structural integrity of their wooden beds. You think you're building a sanctuary, but without these core rules, you're just creating an expensive bonfire waiting for a spark. First, never use treated lumber laden with toxic chemicals. If it leaches into your soil, you aren't growing food, you are cultivating poison. Second, stop ignoring drainage. If you don't provide proper escape routes for excess water, you are essentially drowning your roots in a rotting wooden box. Third, never skip the lining process. A bed without a barrier is a bed surrendered to the weeds and the relentless decay of wood against damp earth. Fourth, don't build too wide. If you can't reach the center, you'll end up stepping on your soil, compacting the life out of it. Fifth, never use cheap, thin hardware. It will snap under the pressure of the soil weight, leaving your project to collapse in a single season. Sixth, don't overlook the importance of vertical support for heavy vines. Letting them smother your bed is a rookie mistake that invites pests and diseases. Seventh, never forget the level foundation. An uneven base creates uneven water distribution, leading to stress and death for your plants. Eighth, avoid placing your beds in shade zones. Sunlight is the currency of your garden, and you are currently going bankrupt. Ninth, never assume the wood will last forever. If you don't plan for its eventual replacement, you are setting yourself up for a catastrophic surprise. But if you think these 9 lessons are the finish line, you are dead wrong. We have walked through the wreckage of these mistakes together, but are you truly prepared for the final step to master this legacy? This is it, the culmination of everything we've built. You've identified the failures, dodged the traps, and stopped the bleeding in your soil. But let's get real. You didn't start this garden just to grow a few tomatoes. You started this because you wanted self-reliance in a world that feels increasingly fragile. Every raised bed, every handful of rich, dark earth is an investment in your family's autonomy. This is how you reclaim your future, turning your backyard into a fortress of food security. When you master these wooden beds, you aren't just gardening, you are building a legacy. You are cutting the strings of dependency and replacing them with a harvest that pays dividends in health and survival. Think about the market prices, the supply chains, and the uncertainty looming over the horizon. Your garden is your hedge against that chaos. This is your kingdom, your pantry, and your quiet act of defiance. The soil is calling for your stewardship, and the time to plant your flag is right now. But the real secret to true abundance is hidden in the cycle of decay. If you think the foundation of your success is just the wood and the dirt, then you have missed the heartbeat of the land entirely. The transformation you seek is not in what you buy, but in how you regenerate the life beneath your feet. There is a precise, high-speed biological alchemy that turns common waste into the black gold that fuels empires of crops. You are standing on the precipice of a radical shift. If you believe these lessons were the end, you are severely mistaken. The true revolution starts with what you throw away. Subscribe to Amos Miller today so you never miss the fast-track composting method that will change your garden forever.